Wonderful. So welcome. My name is Julie Preeter, Executive Director with Mental Health America. And today we have a special guest here for our Pink Chair sessions. We haven't had our Pink Chair sessions in quite some time, but we have local poet Georgia Ressmeyer with us today. And she has written a book that we are going to discuss a few of her poems around mental health. And since it's Mental Health Month here in the United States, we are trying to lift the platform around what poor mental health looks like and how can we reduce stigma as a community. So this is one of our offerings this month, and we're so excited to have you here, Georgia.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, absolutely. So I just want to introduce Georgia by reading her bio so we all understand where she's come from and how she came to be here in the Pink Chair today. Georgia is a native to Long Island, New York, and has lived there happily. And she came here to Wisconsin in 1974, first as a lawyer, now as a writer of poetry and prose. She taught English at a women's junior college in Tokyo. Very exciting. Served as a staff attorney with legal services programs in Wisconsin and Minnesota. Worked as an organizer, consultant, and grant writer for feminist groups in Milwaukee, and for 18 years provided defense representation to individuals diagnosed with mental illnesses and disabilities as staff and managing attorney with the Mental Health Division of the State Public Defender's Office. Twice a Pushcart Prize nominee, Georgia has published numerous poems and an award-winning poetry chapbook, Today I Threw My Watch Away, and 2 full-length poetry collections, Waiting to Sail and Home Body. She lives near Lake Michigan in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. We're so honored to have you here.
I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. So before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about how you came to write poetry from your experience as a public defender?
Well, I retired at 55. I had gotten cancer and at 49 and decided, okay, I'm going to retire as soon as I can, save my money, retire at 55, because I had always wanted to be a writer and I'd always written mostly fiction. But then when I retired and moved to Sheboygan, it was all of a sudden I was writing poetry, which I had never really written. I mean, you write poems for school as a kid, but I hadn't written, and I didn't particularly like or understand poetry because being in such a logical, rational occupation, I thought I had to be logical. I thought poetry should be too. But then once I retired, I had this huge sense of release, and all of a sudden I'm writing poetry. And I realized, no, poetry doesn't have to be logical. It can follow intuitive leaps, and it can just find its own pace. I didn't write poems about my client experiences at first, but eventually maybe 10 years ago, I came across some old journals where I had recorded some information about cases that I had had. I loved my public defender job. That was the last 18 years of my career. I really enjoyed the clients. It was just a wonderful job, and I learned so much from them. So I just started writing story poems based on those notes. And I hadn't written names in my journal. So in most cases, I don't even remember the names. I wanted to protect confidentiality. So I'm sure some of the details are wrong. I changed some that I thought might identify people. I didn't want to, but that was, all those notes were from 1984 and 85, so 37 years ago. So the first part of my book, my new book, is called a chapbook. It's a short book of poetry. It's called Leading a Life. The first part is 9 client stories. And the second part is just poems about emotional and mental states inspired by things people said to me or how I was feeling. And I just started occasionally writing those. And then, you know, finally I said, well, really, maybe this should be its own book, because especially now with the pandemic, so many people are experiencing, you know, depression, anxiety, fear, rage, whatever. And there might be, I want very much for people to just see mental illness and mental health as, you know, a spectrum, probably a circle, and we all move around on it. And we're all just people doing our best to lead our lives. And I think, you know, you know, try to get away from the stigma and just learn to be compassionate toward people who are diagnosed as a mental illness, and toward people who aren't, and toward ourselves. You know, we need to be kind. So that was my motivation in writing the book.
I love how you said that. That's so beautifully stated, that, you know, we're moving around in this circle. Very well said. I'm going to steal that.
Good. Be my guest.
So I find it interesting. So you had these journals from over 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Writing again, you know, and looking at these journals, did you find that it brought up emotions again? Obviously, you went to journaling because it was an outlet for you to, I mean, public defenders probably have all sorts of stories.
Yeah.
You know, did you feel that some of it was traumatizing at all, looking back through it?
Yes, the last story poem is more of the pain of the work that I did. And, you know, where I was questioning, you know, like, really, how do we know, how do I know whether I'm the sane one or my client is the sane one, you know, and just struggling with just, you know, the pain I was, you know, privy to. But a lot of the clients actually, you know, we established a rapport, and we were able to laugh together and, you know, joke together, and they would say some amazing things, you know, and I would tend to write those down because I enjoyed them so much. So partly it was an outlet for the pain, partly it was, yeah, partly I just wanted to record these fascinating encounters with people I had never met, people, you know, who were in a crisis state like that before. And I found I really just got along and enjoyed, you know, to the extent that I could, enjoyed them, except the ones that yelled at me all the time.
Right. Comes with the job,
yes,
though, right?
Does. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know, we talk a lot about journaling here, and we just had EMS week, you know, honoring first responders, and we think about all the frontline workers and the essential workers over the pandemic. And I think your point of this being an outlet and it being cathartic is something, you know, if you're a frontline worker right now listening to this, or a gatekeeper for any individual coming into services, how important journaling is, because where are you debriefing as an individual? You can go to a therapist, you can talk to your loved ones, but journaling is such a great outlet. And I think through your poetry here and your words, it really shines how cathartic this has been for you, this process, this book.
Yeah.
So, so let's start with our first poem, and I'll let you introduce it and
yeah.
read it.
I don't want to say a lot about it. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's called A Silent Declaration. Sometimes my clients bombarded me with words. This woman did not. Okay, let's just put it that way. It's called, okay, A Silent Declaration. Her arms hugging her chest, eyes downcast, no wish to talk, nothing to say, no one to trust. A hospital bathrobe as good, a costume as any she could wear, a door jamb to lean on in lieu of a chair, food becoming irrelevant. I learned from others that she graduated from college, worked at a halfway house in a distant city, returned home uncommunicative, angry with the father she once adored. Depression ran in the family. Our conversation was short. She made eye contact with me twice, probably to see if she could trust me. Her eyes were mournful, probing, far from the rushed, goal-oriented world I tried to keep from flooding out of mine. After I explained her legal options, she rasped, "Dismiss." On her behalf, I went to court. She declined to join me and won a dismissal on technical grounds. Her father was incensed, harangued the court commissioner, shook his fist, threatened to sue her for incompetence. In the meantime, my client had signed herself into the hospital voluntarily, uncoerced by her parents, the court, anyone else. She accepted treatment, was discharged soon after, became involved in a church serving homeless people, got married, gave birth. I lost touch with her after that. These days, I wonder if she's still a woman of few words and what she talks about when she does speak.
So powerful. And it's, if you're listening to this today, I really think every single person that you work with in this field, you really wonder, where are they today?
Yeah. And there's no way to find out because their whereabouts are confidential, wherever they are, and especially the women, we can't always find them.
Why her? Why write about her? What spoke to you about this story?
I think I identified with her on some level. I think she maybe experienced her rebellious period a little later than I did. Mine happened in high school, and I remember thinking my dad was a hypocrite and, being really angry at him. And which, my dad was good about it. He said, everybody has to rebel. It's okay, but I was pretty hard on him. But we got through it, and I probably, just started to accept him as he was sooner than my siblings did, who waited longer to get that rebelliousness out of their system. I don't really know what was going on with her, so. I have to, there's a certain amount of speculation that goes on in my mind, but it touched me, what she was going through, and the fact that she didn't want to be forced to be in the hospital, but once that was taken away, she was willing to stay, but not on her terms rather than, the courts or her father's or whatever. So it was a satisfying experience. We won the case, but she still accepted treatment and got out pretty fast. So,
and it's such courage when you have these conversations with individuals that intersect within the legal system and find themselves in a crisis, and anyone under any kind of circumstances where there's such trauma could be in a situation where they need to have inpatient care. It's hard to say what will come across your path in life.
Yeah.
And what will cause, your mental health to go into a state of, either deteriorating or in a crisis. And I bring this up, Georgia, because I feel a lot of our phone calls from our community is a caregiver's trying to get their loved one into treatment, and it's that third-party commitment when someone is not willing to go into treatment, and how do we maneuver a system that's very difficult, a third-party commitment, and it normally doesn't happen, to try to get that situation to occur. So you have a story here of a young woman who had the courage and understood that she needed to have treatment at a higher level than, outpatient. And that can bring a lot of fear to someone.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know this is wrenching for the family too. I don't, and I got yelled a lot by families too.
Yes.
And I understand that, but my job was to represent the person who the whole system was sort of stacked against my clients. And so I wanted to do the best possible job and be the best possible advocate for them that I could be. And, to do less than that, to take a maternalistic attitude and say, oh, she really needs treatment, I won't do a very good job. That's wrong. And it violates the lawyer's code of ethics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, 18 years in the profession, thank you for your service. It's, as you said, you're there to provide a voice for that client.
Mhm.
And, I hope everyone reads this book because it really gives you, that inward look of what's going on within the system and what's going on with individuals that find themselves there. And this story really, out of all the ones that we were looking at, really spoke to me because it's what we hear on a daily basis here.
Yeah.
It's from individuals and it's from the caregivers, and it's about taking that first step to get the care.
Yeah,
So
right. Traumatic for everybody.
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Mhm.
So thank you for putting a voice to this.
Mhm.
And once again, this one is a silent declaration. So we're going to move on to the next one. The Queen of Pride.
Yes. When I started writing about this, it was about me. And then as I continued to write about it and heard other people's reaction, I realized it's about a lot of people. And it's about shame issues, and it's about feeling alienated, and that that I felt I was different from other people. I felt like the black sheep in my family. I didn't feel I belonged anywhere. And as a shy introvert, I've kind of had that feeling all my life. Excuse me, let me just take a sip. I'm getting raspy.
Coffee and tea break.
So, and it's also the only, the only poem in the book that's in a recognized poetic form. Most of them are free verse. This one is actually a sonnet, which is a 14-line poem with fairly long lines. This is, what Shakespeare wrote a ton of sonnets, and Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I'm not comparing my work to theirs. I'm just saying that the form has been around a long time. And what I liked about it is that although it has end rhymes, which aren't, in fashion in poetry circles these days, people like rhyme. But the lines are long enough that this sounds natural. It doesn't sound, like da 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 da, and it doesn't get cloying. It's close to natural speech as you can get. So,
Wonderful.
Okay, the Queen of Pride. Please do not ask the Queen of Pride to go unmediated through the world. She needs a crutch, one that is slender as a reed, if not invisible. No one must know the price she paid for it, too high, too low, or that she paid a price at all. Her creed of keeping weakness under wraps now leads to such dissemblance that her fear just grows that she will be unmasked, the brace kicked out from under her. She dare not show her dread of being made a fool, nor can she shout or call attention to herself. The bed this queen has made, on which she now must lie, has needles in it, but she will not cry. See, I laughed instead of crying. Yeah.
And what about those needles?
There's pain. It's interesting. My older sister can burst into tears at the drop of a hat. She'll throw herself down on the bed, and she was always like that. And I was a middle child, and I had a sister two years older and 2 years younger. I think I probably was told by my mother a lot when my younger sister was born, "Mommy needs you not to cry." She had to attend to the baby, and so I somehow took it in that crying was somehow shameful. So I sort of steeled myself against it, which is a lifelong habit. I still don't cry very much. I tear up, but I don't cry very much. And I know how important it is to get those emotions out, but I can't force myself. So maybe if I went to acting school, maybe that would help, but that's.
Or you find other outlets.
Yeah, that's so true.
Mm-hmm.
Poetry is a great outlet. And it's like journaling in that it helps me find out how I feel and what I'm thinking about and what's going on with me emotionally. Otherwise, I don't always stop to, listen to what's going on inside me. So, yeah.
And what about the shame and stigma that's wrapped around the Queen of Pride?
Yeah.
When you wrote this, did you feel this was still true, or was this from long ago?
No, it was still true. I felt it was still true. It's still true now for me, and so I can empathize with the sense of stigma that people who are diagnosed with a mental illness feel, because, and we're always hearing about, these mass shootings where, they'll say, "Oh, well, this guy had mental problems," and, what people need to know is that the population of people diagnosed with mental illness are no more violent than the rest of the society. It's not something characteristic of all mental illness. And
right. That's a myth. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about that enough.
I know. So the stigma has to go. We just have to, just recognize that we're all just people doing our best. And
well, and what stood out to me, it's the transparency. If the transparency comes through, the price will be too high. But what is the price, Georgia? Is there a price? Is it in our head?
To a large extent, it is. I'm very aware that's a mental, block I have, where I don't know. There's probably a better term for it. It's just so ingrained. It's hard to root it out.
Mm-hmm. So if you could talk to a young person who might be listening to this right now, do you feel there is a price for being transparent with your mental health?
I'll tell you something, writing this book and really coming out with, this is me to a large extent. I've never been diagnosed, but that doesn't mean I don't experience, mental health issues, and haven't all my life. So yeah, I would just say, I feel better having written this book. It's sort of like a coming out, for me. And it's freeing, that if it's out there, then nobody can knock the brace out from under you, because you already know it's, I don't know, it takes the fear of being unmasked away, because we're just admitting it.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel there's a lot of hope for this generation that's coming up now of these young kids, and we're talking about it more, and they are discussing it more. But the price is high when we don't talk about it, because we end up losing a connection with ourselves and with others. And that's where we find, our suicide rates are high, or self-harm rates. And, I always say, your story will set you free. Yeah. And the brace is gone then. Mm-hmm. And I say that, but, and I was just telling my husband this recently, I haven't fully told my whole story. Mm. I tell snippets of it here and there, but I haven't really put it out there. So I think we all need to work on getting rid of that brace so we can so we can be free. And I think this, each line says something so profound. It's something that should be read every day. You know?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that you think it has value.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And to the work you're doing, because I want to be as supportive of that as I can. You're doing great things.
Thank you. Well, by doing this interview, it really helps bring the platform out in the open, that we can have these conversations.
Yeah.
Should we do one more?
I don't know. How are we doing on time?
Let's see. How are we doing? I don't know. I think we could do one more of the human mind.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. The human mind. This is just a series of metaphors that I found appropriate to my sense of the vulnerability of all of us and our minds and hearts. And so here goes, the human mind. How fragile the human mind is. Watermelon gone splat from a flatbed truck. Seeds of thought caught in the treads of tires speeding away. What skull can contain the whole? Keep safe, sane, warm, all sense of what anything means when rattled like a baby's toy by passers-by, babbling sounds, but brooking no responses. A flock of starlings, buzzing, whistling, in throngs on fields of grass, like fleas on cats, distractions to disheveled hosts. A knotted mass of sewing basket debris, working itself free from the points and jabs of endless repetitive intrusions, huddled now in soft repose with other tangled fuses.
Can you speak a little bit about where this poem came from?
I don't remember. I don't remember. I have to be honest, I don't remember it. Just, it's like the process of writing poetry, you never know what's going to come out. And my poetry style changes, every day. I'm not the kind of person that can make notes and say, oh, today I'm going to write a poem about the human mind. It just, I probably just started, I sit with a clipboard and a pen and a piece of paper because I don't like writing on a computer, and wait for that first line. And probably the first line, how fragile the human mind is. And then I was looking for descriptives for it and just kept going. I'm totally inspiration dependent. I don't make notes, oh, I must write this poem, because that to me is the kiss of death. I get bored with it as soon as I start writing anything about it. It just has to come from how I felt that morning, what images were in my head, and get them down on paper. That's all I can say about it.
That sounds perfect. This stood out to me. What skull can contain the whole? Keep safe, sane, warm, all sense. It's so true. And I think for Mental Health Month, that's something that really stands out. If you're listening to this, we're all in this boat together. We're all feeling this, who can contain all of it and the sanity at all times? You cannot.
I cannot. That's for sure. Yeah.
So what are your outlets? And that's really a lot what we've talked about here too. Where are you going to put where you're feeling?
Yeah.
And you have to recognize that as an individual and find that. And if you don't know where to go with your feelings and you need an outlet, then you reach out to us and we'll help you.
Wonderful. Good.
Yes.
And I highly recommend journaling and writing poetry. because you never know where it will take you. And you might find you love it, even if you have never written poetry before.
Mhm. And if you don't know how to journal, then you contact us and we'll point you in the right direction too. We'll get some resources up that Georgia can help us with. Georgia, I want to thank you so much for spending time with us here at Mental Health America today and allowing our community and beyond to have a glimpse into your new book of poetry. And we will have this up on the screen and a link of where you can go to purchase this book. And if you have any comments or if you want to reach out for help, or you know somebody who needs some help, reach out to us here and we'll have that contact information up on the screen at the end. So Georgia, leading a life, we are so honored to have you here, and we're so honored to have you here in Sheboygan too.
Thank you so much, and it's been a pleasure. It helps me to talk about it. Oh, also talking about it helps.
It does.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you. The book is, as like I said, it's a short book. It's 31 pages of poetry. It'll be $10. It's coming out from Water's Edge Press, and it's not out yet. It should be out in September. But I will keep you posted. And maybe you can put a link on your, I don't know. I mean,
Yes.
I'm not asking.
We'll have a link straight to it when it comes out.
To Water's Edge Press. I believe in supporting small presses, and this is local. So, yes.
Wonderful.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in the pink chair sessions. Have a great day, everyone.